Now I'm working on a new song, so I thought I'd get some clips of that. Perfect. Do you think it's aimed right?
Thinks I can, but I contradict her constantly.
Hello and welcome back to Todd Audio. Today I'm going to tell you guys about my smaller studio. I know I've been saying I was going to do this a while. The day is finally here. So I'm going to tell you about my small bedroom studio. This is an 11 by 11 room, and it's probably a challenge that a lot of home recording artists are working with. I used to have everything in my living room. If you go on my channel, you'll find a living room home studio tour. That was great. It was kind of a dream come true for a year or two until I started realizing, well, it's kind of hard to do both, recording and having a living room. And I would often move stuff around and be shifting things around, and it really kind of intervened with the workflow. So I wanted to try out actually going back a step and having a bedroom studio like a lot of people are probably doing, and putting it in this case, a really small room, 11 by 11 again, which a square room is not ideal for room acoustics. The space is obviously pretty consolidated. There's a lot of challenges that I've had to work with to make it all work out. But once I got it all kind of to the right point, it helps with workflow in a lot of ways. So let's get started. By the way, a little side note, you're gonna have to work with me. A lot of times I just don't feel like getting all ready. I'm kind of in my pajamas right now, baby. But that doesn't mean we can't shoot this video. So, let's get going. I literally had to move the camera all the way back in the corner of the room as far away as I could get it in order to get as big a picture of the studio as I could. It's that small that for shooting these videos, there's a lot of times only one spot I can put the lights or the camera to make it work. It takes out some of the thought process because there's only one obvious solution, and that's what I'm finding with other aspects of the studio as a whole when it comes to recording music as well. So let's start with the desk. Right here, we've got this computer, which is the desktop, and then this computer here, which is the laptop that I typically record on. If you've followed any of my other videos, I tend to use this setup right on this piece of plywood for almost all my recording lately. I've got microphone inputs and everything right here on this Scarlett recording device running into the laptop. It keeps everything uniform for me. So the more I work with that over the years, I tend to get a better feel for it and enhance my workflow because I'm always putting my hands on the same devices. So as a home recording artist, if you are not out there recording 10, 20 other bands and you're doing this just for yourself, I highly recommend, instead of getting caught up in the tech gear grind, find what works best for you. Find the tools, do your research. You don't need a ton of stuff. You just need what you need to work with for your workflow. And that's what I've been working on enhancing over the years. And that is why I primarily use this one rack here to do most of my hands-on recording stuff. That doesn't mean that I'll never add to it, but I just research my stuff well, and I don't continually just buy recording gear because I think it's going to enhance my recordings. It's a skill. You got to work at it, you got to get better at it, and you got to get familiar with the tools that you have on hand. This desktop computer is primarily for video. Every now and then, I'll record audio with it. If I want to run a snake out into the piano in the living room or another room, I can do that. I can use other rooms in my house as a live room if I want to. and I can use this room as just a control room. But as a solo recording artist, most of my music is produced within this room. So this computer, therefore, becomes primarily a research tool and a video editing computer. So I've got my audio here. If I'm working on something right there, I can be sitting in the same chair and research something on this screen. So again, it goes back to, if you're confined to a small space, take advantage of that. Make everything within an arm's reach. Find ways to enhance your workflow, and it actually can be a good thing. You have some obstacles to work around as far as room acoustics, and some of those, no matter what you do, you're still going to have a slight problem. It won't be as good as having a bigger room or an actual studio that's treated for audio. But it's very treatable. You can do some home solutions that you can find on my channel as far as making bass traps, making audio panels. You can save in cost on that if you do it yourself, but it does require some work. We'll get into that in a minute. I just have one basic set of monitors. Eventually I'd like to get a couple as a cross reference. Right now, another nice thing to have in a home studio is, if you're in a small room like this, is a good set of headphones, because you can, if you get a good set, you can cross-reference the bass. But you want to be careful with headphones and bass. You want to do some research and find out what headphones are going to give you an accurate representation of bass. It's not something you want to exclusively use, but if you do some headphone as a reference and then some on your monitors, get a feel for what works for both. That's how I like to do my mixes in a smaller environment like this. So, I've got audio running from here. I've got both computers, the audio computer and the video computer, are both running into just a basic mixer. I can have all the audio in the room running to that mixer, and I can run it through the monitors if I want. So over here I've got just a drum kit, just an electric drum kit, pretty basic Yamaha, simple, but I can get some ideas for audio. I can record some beats from that, and then a lot of times I'll go out and remap out those beats with higher quality samples on my software on my laptop. Other times I'll just run a MIDI cable from the drum kit into the software and record audio and MIDI at the same time, so then I can take the MIDI and map out drum sounds to it. A lot of times this drum kit for me is just a tool for ideas. If I get a beat down as a keyboardist, a lot of times I'll use pads. Again, on my setup here, I'll hit the pads and kind of replicate that beat. But sometimes sitting down at a kit gives you a better feel for coming up with a beat. So I like to do that. I like to use that as a tool. The main microphone I use in here is pre-set up, running through this Art MPA2. It's got a cloud lifter, which these cloud lifters give it kind of a boost. It gives it up to a 20 decibel boost with really essentially no ground noise. So you're gonna run, you can take a dynamic mic like this. This cloud lifter requires me to use phantom powering, and then it's going to give it that audio boost, which brings out a lot of presence within the microphone. And then I've got it running through this preamp. All that's pre-set up. So again, everything's within our arm's reach. If I'm recording a song, want to put some vocals down, I just turn the stuff on and the wiring's set up and done. So again, in this home studio, small room, take advantage. Get your stuff set up so you can plug and play. The biggest thing that I like about having a separate room is that I can keep on with my workflow. So I can walk away from it, I can leave the stuff turned on, and then I can come back to it later on in the day. A lot of times I'll turn the screens off or some of the LEDs off so it's not just constantly on if it's going to be a day or two before I come back. But when I come back, my project's loaded up on the laptop. Everything's there and ready to go. Now, I'll get into some of my room acoustics real quick and just show you how I have that stuff set up. Okay, so the room acoustics, I've got my bass traps in the corner. And then even in the ceiling corners, I treated those because it helps. Everything's so compressed. Bass waves are taking up a lot of space in the room, and you got to have a lot of treatment to be able to handle them. And even this isn't going to totally do everything. And I can physically hear a difference in a cleaner, tighter bass. That's an indication that these side bass traps in the corners there are keeping it from reflecting out of those corners and getting in my ears. Where if I'm standing where I am now, right here, where there's nothing there in the corners, the bass sounds a lot more blown out. So you got to look at your mixing options and your treatment options for where you're going to be sitting. If you're into running sound tests to really analyze it, you can do that as well. But you're definitely going to need some room treatment if you want to have a productive mixing environment. There's still workarounds, but eventually this is something you're going to probably want. For just sitting there and recording, you don't need any of this. You can lay down some tracks, especially with keyboards and MIDI and stuff, having a good time. That's what I did for years. And you can still get creative and you can still progress with your recording skills. That's what it's really about. So if you're serious about a home studio right now, get into the room treatment. If you just want to get going and get your hands on it, but doing room treatment doesn't seem like a practical thing to start at this moment, that is perfectly fine. Don't let it hold you up from following what you want to do with your home studio. Now, back here, these three panels here are actually on a little dark back here, but they're actually on a wood stand I made. And that's just 2x4 and leans up against the wall like so. And there's just a rail that goes all the way back that those three panels are sitting on. So I can pick those up easily and move them into the living room or another room if I want to repurpose them and use them in there for recording applications. But right now they're there for mixing. Again, these on the back wall, I have a few more in the living room right now, but they can just be propped up on something and placed there. And then they can be moved around. I'm really big on home recording and having panels that you don't have permanently mounted to the wall, that you can pick up and you can move. If you check some of the other videos, I show how to set up a panel solution where it can actually mount on a mic stand, and then you can use that as a portable panel setup. So that pretty much covers the room acoustics. I plan on getting into a video on how these are mounted on the ceiling soon. That'll be a super short video because the solution's simple. I'll get into more detail, but all I have is like a loop hook screwed into the corner of the ceiling and then a strap coming from that's tightened to hold the panel. Something new I tried doing here is kind of for inspiration and motivation and encouragement to keep on going. I've found YouTube comments that I liked or that I found motivating and just cut them out and taped them on the wall here. So that's kind of a work in progress. Every now and then I'm kind of like, do I want to do that? Do I not? But that's a description of my workflow in general right there. The software on Ableton Live can be controlled with this as a remote. And then the MIDI coming out of the Scarlett that's hooked up to Ableton Live can be triggered with these buttons to control sounds that are built in to this chord keyboard. There really is not much in here at all that doesn't have to do with recording music. So there's very little distraction in here, and that's another thing that helps with workflow. I've got some drawers there if I want to store wires or certain things that I might just have to grab real quick. And then here, I like to use colored tape to basically color code things. So on my mixer right here, I know which channels the left and right. And when I plug that in on the other end, which is kind of hard to see, but it's right there, I don't have to run through the whole wire to figure out how that goes. And this is actually back in the living room. I left a few things still in the living room. Obviously, there's not room for a piano, so that's still in this room. I've got a few mics set up with the Zoom device just to be able to lay down some ideas and do quick recordings that I can then bring into the studio. And then I left my wiring in here because that would be a mess trying to keep it in a small studio like that. And most of the walls have acoustic treatment on them too. So I hang those here, and then if I need a certain wire, I can run in and grab it. And usually it ends up that the only time I need different wires are if I have somebody over and we're jamming. And if we're jamming, we're usually in this room. So some things are appropriate to leave out and just simplify your small room studio. I gotta get this video wrapped up because I spilled my freaking coffee. It's the last scene, so I'll clean it up in a minute. Is it in focus? Focus? Hold on. Oh, get this thing focused. Oh, wait. That's why I spilled my coffee the first time. And good enough. Good enough. Since I'm in my pajamas, I figured I'd just go for the relaxed vibe in this video. Anyway, all these socks. Luckily I didn't dress up for this one. Spilled some coffee on myself. I think that about wraps it up. It's pretty simple. Hope you've had a good morning or a good day. Maybe you're still in your PJs too. Thanks for watching. Again, the studio is pretty simple. Everything's within an arm reach, and I found ways to take advantage of having a smaller room, which is nice. The biggest thing I can leave you with is do what's best for you. Go out and look for solutions and look for ideas, but think about how those apply to you and your specific music style. Don't be sold on a billion different recording gear, pieces of technology or whatever that you don't need. Get what you need and learn it. Get really familiar with your recording software, really familiar with your recording environment, and learn how to produce pristine music coming out of that. So what fits your needs specifically? Thanks for watching. I wish you the best in your home studio discovery. And as always, have an awesome day. This coffee's cold.